I think we're talking about grace today. And so many other things too, because we have just completed February, the month of Black History. We are now into March about women, and today is International Women's Day. How many international women do we have here? All of us, okay. Grace is the face that love wears when it meets imperfection. I love that. I love that. And we spoke this morning to the kids about how you're still wonderful, no matter if there's a little error that takes place from time to time. There is this something. I have talked with people who have told me their life stories. Ministers get to do that, especially when they've done this for nearly 45 years. I was 3 when I began. I've heard people tell me about what took place in their lives and some terrible mistakes that they made along the way. And the only thing that they have been able to tell me has gotten them through it was grace. They knew they couldn't have done it by themselves. And so everything that is divinely, innately within all of us can express itself more perfectly no matter what has taken place in the years previously when we align ourselves and surrender to that divine grace. It's there no matter what. Carolyn Myss says grace is like a blanket of hope that covers you at night when you don't think you have what it takes to get up in the morning. Was today one of those mornings? And it had nothing to do with any events. It just had to do with some artificial time element, huh? It may feel miraculous to find yourself on the other side of a painful challenge, or even a minor challenge. You know, if your microphone starts cutting out, then you just pick up another one, right? Everything is always provided. And that's grace as well. And it usually takes place in this great surrendering to the divine grace that's within and expressing through all of us when we just remember. Grace is the natural underlying caring of all creation by the divine creator. There's a lot taking place in our world right now, we've noticed, right? A lot that concerns, a lot that disturbs. Political uncertainty. Stop watching that television. You gotta turn it off once in a while. Go down deep within. Because divine intelligence is still in charge. Things seem chaotic. Things seem uncertain. Divine intelligence is still active, always has been, always will be, through all the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and things that take place in our world. The infinite love and divine intelligence still exists and will continue to express through all of us as we open our hearts to it. There's this virus thing. We're going to talk about it only for a minute because I don't like to focus on what I don't like to focus on. Do you? But I want to tell you a very important story, a very ancient story, about a holy man who was sitting beside the river just outside of town. And he saw someone coming into his vision. And as he got closer, the holy man asked, "Who are you?" And the answer was, "I'm the plague." He says, "Oh, where are you going?" "I'm going into town. And what will you do there?" "I will take 100 people." So he said, okay. We found him coming back out of the town later, and the holy man had heard that 1,100 people had been taken. And he said, "Plague, you did not keep your promise. You said you would take 100 people." He said, "Oh, I kept my promise. I took 100 people. The rest of them were taken by fear. And we're not going to go there. We're going to do what's appropriate. We're going to do what we're encouraged to do on the outside. And on the inside, we're going to continue to maintain our focus upon the unimpeachable wholeness of the universe. In and through us, all of our loved ones, our neighbors, people all over the world, we sustain that clear awareness that grace is still active in our lives and in the world. Don't you love the song Amazing Grace? Now, we've changed the words of it when we sing it because we're not wretches. We can be souls, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. Right, that's how we would do it. And you know the story about it, right? That it was written by John Newton. Do you know what John Newton did before he wrote that song? Many do. He was a slave trader. He brought slaves over on his ships. And one day he awakened to the terrible vocation he had selected. One day he woke up, he saw the light as Saul became Paul when he saw the light on the road to Damascus. One day he saw the light and he no longer could do what he was doing when he was aware that it was a horrible, terrible thing. He didn't realize it till then. Do you know there are a lot of people, and maybe you and I can count ourselves among them, who have done things in the past that we would never have done had we realized that it was not a good idea. Anybody here? Okay, so this was heinous, but he awakened to it. He didn't know before that. He didn't realize. He must have come to an authentic place of real atonement. Atonement, I love the word at-one-ment. And he surrendered to a loving presence far greater than anything he had ever known before. Now, he did feel as though he was a wretch who had been saved. We don't have to do the wretch thing. We can simply do the soul thing, right? A beautiful, wonderful song, a powerful song, and especially when we realize the origins of it. So we celebrated in February the great accomplishments, the beautiful contributions to the world of people of color. And today we're celebrating Women's History. It is International Women's Day. How many of you saw the movie Hidden Figures? Oh my word. Oh my word. Who knew? Back in the 60s, black female mathematicians were working for NASA. They couldn't be engineers. They could not even use the same bathroom that the other employees did. Remember in the movie, she had to walk to another building in the rain? And they finally stopped that. But this, even in a segregated environment, they managed to produce and to correct information for John Glenn's ultimate successful flight and beyond that. 50 years ago, Shirley Chisholm, anybody know Shirley Chisholm? First African American, all those words, person of color, Congresswoman. Oh, there's a new phrase. We learned it in Denver at the convention. And it is, if Reverend Mike were here, he'd remind me. It's something like the greater population of people who are a part of the greater population of the world. How about that? I rather like it. So, the important women in New Thought history I want to touch on for a moment. And there was time, centuries ago, when there were matriarchal societies that were fairly peaceful. Oh, they could become warlike when they needed to be, but they were basically peaceful. On the island of Crete, the Minoan civilization, you still find artifacts of women. There was a great focus. Women were honored. They were revered. And at one point, they began to get scary to men. And men felt as though they had to suppress them and be in charge. So the patriarchal society came in. We're in the process now of getting this all worked out. because it's a bit of a mess. We're in the process of realizing this hierogamos begins with us, the divine wedding, the sacred wedding of the male and female within each of us. So when women began to get scary to men, and we are scary, be afraid, be very afraid. No, not really. Then we needed to be controlled, right? And it wasn't all that long ago, really, 100 years or so, that women were still considered the property of men. We can laugh at that now. It wasn't so funny then. And women, as men, all people, we have within us, everyone has within us that divine urge to be and to become our authentic self, whoever that might be. And so ultimately, this began to change. Our beloved friend, Dr. Jane Claypool, wrote a wonderful book called New Thought Woman. And it really is so beautiful. Ann Cassidy Zoll and Reverend Mike taught a class on it a year or so ago. And it's an eye-opening thing, isn't it? To realize the contributions that have been made. And through women who knew who they were and were willing to speak about it and to live from their principles. Because Jane wants us to be proud of our brilliant beginnings, not about political power, but spiritual power. And isn't it cool, though, that more women are entering politics? We're proud of our heritage, we're proud of our inclusion, we're proud of our diversity. I mean, diversity is something we already have. Inclusion is something we definitely need. These women, early women, were mystics. And what is a mystic? It's someone who sees oneness. We're in the process of awakening to our unity with the divine, our unity with one another, men, women, children, animals, plants, this whole world. We are about co-creating a world that works for all. And as we do that, it's a wonderful sense of empowering one another. A mystic is someone who sees through the veil of illusion to the ultimate reality that there is God and nothing else, that we are all united in love and in wisdom. So some of our early folks, like Mary Baker Eddy, who started the Christian Science movement, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who taught spiritual principles to thousands, Nona Brooks had a very successful church, Divine Science. That was before women were even working outside their homes. The greatest thinkers have always been called heretics. You have an idea that's different from the status quo? How very heretical of you. We're in the process of realizing that our young people are showing us some new ways to think about things. And you know what the word heretic really means? Its root is to choose. To choose. Now, Hildegard of Bingen, an amazing, amazing woman in the Middle Ages. She lived from 1098 to 1179. She wrote music, she wrote poetry, she taught, she lived from the heart of the divine. She was a true mystic. And of course, music was not recorded in the same, well, I mean, it wasn't notated, wasn't recorded, except in the, the mind of the one. But she couldn't really, I mean, she made some sort of notations, but modern musicians have interpreted that. She wrote a whole opera, and I've heard it, and it's scary, because the devil's in it too. But it's beautiful, and it's amazing. Then, the Beguines, the Begin. This is the early 13th century. They were Catholic women who weren't part of a regular convent, but they also were mystics. They saw the oneness beyond the division. And they prayed, and they did good work. And from the beginnings, and they, by the way, influenced Meister Eckhart, that great, beautiful Christian mystic. And then, from the beginnings, I always want to break out into song. And so, Mechtilde of Magdeburg, a German woman who was one of the Beguines, and then she moved out to do her own work. She wrote, and she was threatened with death for the work that she was doing in the 13th century. And I have one little piece of what she wrote. I have been warned about this book, and this is what I was told, that if I did not bury it, it would be fed to the flames. Lord, you are my lover, my longing, my flowing stream, my sun, and I am your reflection. Then the 17th century, let's move up a few centuries. The Puritans came here from England. From that group of people who were wanting religious freedom, developed the Quakers, and here we are in Penn's Woods, right? Because William Penn, as a Quaker, stood for religious freedom. And all of the Quakers, all of the Friends, and the Shakers, beyond that, have a deep, deep mystical connection, and they're part of our New Thought heritage. The Transcendentalists, the Unitarians. I had a dear Unitarian minister friend in Northern California, and he said, you know, we have a lot in common, and we do. And he said, if any of us had a patron saint, it would be Ralph Waldo Emerson. And that's true, because he influenced Ernest Holmes, and we love him. So New Thought developed from all of these long, long times of people seeking and discovering the wisdom that's really within. In fact, do you know what the word is? The Greek word for wisdom is Sophia. Sophia. And that wisdom is at the heart of each and every one of us. That's the grace of God expressing, whether it's man, woman, child, it's the grace expressing. Grace is not the self-will. It is the willingness of the self to return to the self, the greater self. So it was not always graceful for women to exercise their real power, but they were always led by grace. And we, you and I, all of us, and all sentient beings in this world, in this universe, I don't know who else might be living anywhere else, but I do know that the grace of God is available to all of us. And that as we become empowered within our own consciousness, and we use our consciousness for good, by focusing our attention on that which is true, that which is beautiful, that which is of good report, and maintain that conscious awareness of our clear intentions of what we desire to bring into our lives and into the world itself, we will be making that difference by maintaining the truth that sets us free and keeps us free. It's a matter of knowing very deeply, very clearly, who we truly are. And we do that by our daily spiritual practices. We're going to wash our hands, but let's wash our minds. Let's keep real clear about what is true and what is permanent. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. But God is the same today, tomorrow, and yesterday. And God is the very heart of your life and my life, and the very beingness of all life. This is where we continue to remember and to allow ourselves to be guided and to be led to that which is ours to do. It's a simple question I ask myself every morning in meditation. Thank you for the fullness of life within me. Thank you for the love that nurtures me. Thank you for the wisdom that guides me. And what is mine to do today? Hieros Gamos, that mystic marriage of the female and the male within us all. for all people to honor their innate divinity. That's what we're focusing on today. So let's surrender to this gentle power of grace. It's a gentle power, but it's a dynamic power. We become more balanced. There's no more struggle. Would you like to live without struggle? There's sweet, sweet guidance. It's a wonderful thing to rely on. And there is this authentic emerging of the real self. So let the grace of God be your awareness all day long. And at night, when you put your head down on your silk pillow, let it hold you, nurture you, guide you, and keep you clear. Will you say with me, I delight in the divine presence of grace. I delight in the divine presence of grace. It makes all the crooked paths straight. It makes all the crooked paths straight. It makes each day a sweet song. It makes each day a sweet song. And so, my beloveds, beginneth our lesson. Thank you.